And now a man who puts wild into 3-day weekends. It's Roger the Wild Child.
Let's get this party started. Ready, set, go.
On the air everywhere.
It's the Roger the Wild Child Show.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Roger the Wild Child. We are here again. Jimmy Knight joins us. Also, Deborah Driggs, Star, and special guest today, Mr. Howard Bloom, along with Frankie MacDonald and the weather.
Happy birthday, Jim! I always upset Roger.
I know. He's like,
always
stop talking over the music.
Stop it, Deborah. Stop
Deborah,
it.
you're talking over my name, okay?
Stop it, Deborah. Deborah, stop it.
How you guys all doing? How was everybody's Memorial Day?
Well, first of all, Jimmy, happy birthday, dude.
Thank you.
Yes! Happy birthday, Jim.
I'm another year closer to the big 50, so...
Oh, wow.
I thought you turned 60.
No, you can go to hell.
Okay.
The big 49 on Friday, which my age almost matched the high temperature in Chicago on Friday. So
Nice.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day for a birthday. 48 and rainy and windy and coldy and shitty and awful. I mean, I literally at one point on Friday walked outside and said, "This has got to be the worst weather birthday I've ever had." It was just freaking awful. The wind was blowing the rain sideways, and it was just cold and awful. And then today, there's not a cloud in the sky, and it's 74. I'm like, thank you. But
So celebrate today.
I did. I mean, yeah, we did. We had. It was a good weekend so far.
Can I correct you? You're 48 years young.
49.
49.
Excuse me, 49. I don't know why I was thinking 48.
I wish I was 40.
49.
Although, I was telling everybody for the past year that I was 49 already. So
49 and still feeling sexy, right, Jim?
Oh, yeah, you should see it.
Oh
Yes.
my gosh. What am I, the oldest person on here?
You are now. For a while, It was just Roger. But
Oh, thanks.
Now it's
just
Dad.
by a smidge, Raj. Just by a smidge, you got me.
It's all right.
It's
Well, 1
tiny bit.
year.
Yeah.
A little over a year. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
but
I just
you
turned.
still got the
No,
dark
you
hair.
need to respect your elders, okay?
Yep, I don't even dye my hair either. So, I mean, I got to be thankful with that.
Look at Deb sitting here going, you know what? I know my age, but I look like I'm 25, so screw all y'all.
Yeah.
Right? So I got to talk about one of the biggest beefs that I have right now. Okay.
Uh-oh.
And we're going to play What's Your Beef? Okay. Because I'm telling all these high school kids, get off your asses and go to work. Because I'm tired of pulling up the Taco Bell drive-thru at 10 o'clock at night and they're shut down because why? Because they don't want to friggin' get off unemployment. And then you go to the next restaurant, you go to McDonald's, which is supposed to be 24 hours. No, they shut down at 9.
Yeah. It's definitely a problem, but I think they're doing you a favor by not allowing you your Taco Bell.
Oh God, they're doing you a favor. You can thank your extra year of life.
No quiero Taco Bell for you.
We're gonna bring a fast food health food store to Idaho. That's my goal.
There you go.
Yes,
And have it be open until midnight.
Or you get your juice drink, your green smoothie or whatever you want. You just drive through and get it. Yeah, and they can be open 24
I can't be
hours for
visiting
Roger.
Yeah, 24 hours.
If you just have Taco Bell and McDonald's, I can't be coming to Idaho.
That's Idaho.
No.
A friend from
No, we
California
do have-
all over to- Yeah.
We do have Mexican that's 24 hours. That's the only thing that's open 24 hours is Mexican.
Oh.
Well, in Chicago,
That's true.
when you live in a big
Las
city,
Vegas.
we can go to fast food places and they have the automated computer screens and we just hit the buttons now. So
What? No way.
yeah, it's crazy. I know, it's
So many
nuts.
good times. I've never
In fact,
even
most
heard of
drive-thrus for McDonald's don't even have humans on the other end. It's welcome to McDonald's, and it's some computer,
that.
and
Are you
just
serious?
oh yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, well, they're all
Oh.
taking over. The computers are taking over. I mean,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
soon you're gonna get Lyft, and a car's gonna show up, and there's not gonna be a driver. So just get
Wow.
ready.
Well, they do that now. They've been
I know.
testing that in Vegas.
The tel-
I know
Oh,
that's what's
wow.
happening.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Crazy.
That is what's happening.
Uh-oh.
Oh, what?
It must be time.
We'll bet that you wish you knew if skies were big, cloudy, or blue. Don't worry or fret, cause your best bet is our weatherman who has plenty to say to you.
All right, here he is, guys. We got Frankie MacDonald. Hey, Frankie, before you start, I have to show you something.
Be prepared to find out guy to life, weather, and everything.
Roger got the book. You got yours finally.
All right, Roger.
Nice.
I got the Frankie MacDonald book, and there's pictures of you of 11 years old in here.
Yeah.
Wow.
You got to get
Then
him
we
to
got-
sign it, Roger.
Yes.
What?
Look at
Oh,
that.
I have to
Oh, neat.
order. Okay, I'm ordering.
Hang
Guys,
on.
I got news for you. I got the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine on May 25th. First dose on my left
Good.
arm. Moderna COVID-19 vaccine, first dose. Vaccine to be continued. Before I know it, I'll be getting the second dose.
Uh-huh.
I have both.
There you go, Frankie.
I have both Moderna, so
Here's
I
some
can
more
now-
pictures of Frankie as a kid.
Oh.
I've actually gone into a couple of stores that if you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear masks. And it is now I kind of like today I ran into, I think it was Target without a mask on and it was okay. I'm kind of gotten used to it now. But that first time I walked into a store without a mask, I was kind of like I was waiting for somebody to take me down. I'm like looking around going, all right. So yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird how 1 year of wearing masks in stores can get into your brain. But I can tell you this, I'm going to continue to wear masks in the winter because I don't want to get the flus or the colds or any of that crap. So
Idaho, they
important
lifted it
to get
up.
flu shot.
I do get the flu shot. I do get that too. So
Now they're
So,
talking
Frankie-
about mRNA flu vaccines now.
they already have the flu vaccines out for this year or next year. Is that what you're saying,
They're
Frankie?
making a new kind of flu vaccine. It's higher effective like COVID vaccine.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, the new, yeah, like what they did with I got you. I know what you're saying. Whatever the genetic code thing is that they did for this COVID vaccine, now they're going to do with all vaccines. Yeah. Yep.
Like influenza. And did you hear about that? It's going to be a lot of thunderstorms all across Texas. They had a lot of rain in Richmond, Virginia, a lot of rain in North Carolina and South Carolina, all across New York and Boston. It's been colder in Sydney, Nova Scotia. It's going to turn really hot in California and Western Canada and the United States this week. Then it's going to shift to the Eastern United States later on in the week. That's going to drive all the cold air all the way down northwestern Mexico. This Friday, Vladivostok, Russia is going to get so much rain. And there's people hear about that. There's a possible tropical storm is going to develop some before the middle of June. Bill is the next named storm.
Oh, Bill?
Yeah.
Hello, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Will you marry me,
Bill.
Bill?
Watch out, that Bill's coming. Not Bill.
And we got Frankie's bobblehead. Where's your action figure? And you can have the official Frankie MacDonald action figure.
I got it.
There it is.
There you go.
Nice.
And
Let
I
me
got
ask
the
you-
book on Amazon.
Let me ask
You
you
can
a
get the
question
Frankie
about,
Be Prepared.
about the weather this week, Frankie.
Yeah, I
Why
knew
was
it.
what occurred?
Sometime in June, you'll get Bass Guy Jack Casey, aka Bass Guy Show, on your show as another guest.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Bass Guy Show.
Awesome.
Hey, Frankie, why was the weather so crappy on Friday in Chicago? Why do we get such like winter-like weather in May? What is going on? Enlighten me.
The weather's pretty bad in Chicago lately.
It was. It's beautiful. No, it was beautiful here Saturday and today. But Friday it was 48 and rainy. And it was like winter almost. How come? What's going on? Are there polar vortexes still happening that I don't know of?
Yes, a polar vortex happened because climate change happening in the world.
Okay, so it's your theory is it's due to climate change. That's why the weather was so good. Because it was awful here on Friday. I was sad. It was like winter, Frankie.
And it's been like 80s, 70s, and 80s here in Idaho.
Hello,
Look at
Frankie.
this
Frankie's
red
like,
tape.
big
Over in
deal,
the
buck
New
it up.
Zealand, weather's getting really
Not
cold in
warm
New Zealand
today.
because cold air's come from the south from Antarctica. Right now, it's dark 24 hours a day in Antarctica.
Yeah.
It's idle 24 hours a day up in the Arctic. That means up in Nunavut and up around in Kukultuk, Nunavut, the next sunset takes place at the end near July 20th. That means once again around September 23rd, both Antarctica and up the Arctic go back 12-hour daylight, 12-hour darkness, both North Pole and South Pole.
Wow.
Wow.
There are seasons. This is Northern Hemisphere, and that's Southern Hemisphere.
Okay.
This is the Northern Hemisphere seasons. This is the Southern Hemisphere seasons. That's the opposite.
Do you follow all of this idea about pole shifting? Have you read anything about that, Frankie?
Like the North Pole and South Pole wobbling each other. Once those slips, that's going to infect the Earth.
Yeah. Do you believe that's going to happen or no?
No, that means that means it's unpredictable. Future is unpredictable. Every country in the world, every place in the universe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as long as Frankie
Okay,
doesn't believe it's
Frankie.
happening, I'm okay with it.
Frankie, I have to tell you that after last week's show, I had a live show with a gentleman in India, and it was live, and we kept going in and out because they were having like typhoon weather, and he's telling me we're having this crazy weather, and I go, hey, our weatherman talked about that on the show.
That
And I
means
was
that
like,
a lot of people in those countries, they don't even speak English.
yeah. Well,
That
I
means we
couldn't
need to
believe
get a
it. I was
translator.
like, our weatherman. I totally did a shout out to you because I was like,
There
oh,
you
wait a
go.
second. Hello. You predicted this in Asia.
You called it, Frankie.
And
Frankie
here-
did. He did.
Yeah.
You are a
Well,
legit
seasons coming in
weatherman.
June, July, August, September in India. And in Vladivostok, Russia gets a lot of rain and hot, humid weather. The most humid city in Russia is Vladivostok.
Wow.
Mm.
That is good
Kind of
to
like,
know. I
kinda
hate
like
humidity.
Houston
So
in Texas.
It
Yeah.
looks like Vladivostok could be the most snowiest city in Russia.
You know what, Frankie? You have fans out there, and
Lots.
believe it or not, apparently one of your fans got a tattoo of Frankie.
nice.
Ernest Acosta of Texas, May
Wow.
2015. That's
Somebody actually
6
tattooed their
years ago.
body, or is that a
That's
wash
a real
on?
body,
No,
it
that's
looks like.
that is on his leg, right, Roger?
Yeah, it's a real tattoo.
Permanent.
That is
Frankie?
awesome.
Look at you, Frankie.
Is that a first?
that's the first guy that got a tattoo of Frankie
Nice.
McDonald on his left leg.
Well, Roger's next. So
I was going to put Deborah Driggs on my shoulder right here, you know?
Right across here, baby. Right across here.
That's Ernest Acosta. He lives in Texas. The CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, interview me.
nice.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Good.
I
Yeah.
got a tattoo, by the way.
Do you?
Oh, really?
Yep, I got one, but I don't know if you're going to be able to see
Oh,
it.
neat.
Now we see it. It's
Okay.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you see it?
we can.
There we go.
Wait, let's see. There
There
we
it
go.
is. That is pretty neat.
Nice.
I'm almost
Ooh, that is
mesmerized.
really
And did you hear about
Well,
that? A lot of scientists are getting this vaccine before they go to Antarctica this southern hemisphere summer in November or December. When the scientists go down to Antarctica to do research, that means that more scientists will be going to Antarctica again because they'll be fully vaccinated before they go back to the research station.
Mm.
What's up, Victor? Victor is saying that's a sweet tattoo. I don't know
Yeah.
if he's saying Deborah's is sweet or Frankie's, but I'm gonna speak for Victor. Victor thinks both of your tattoos are
Victor?
sweet. So thanks, Victor.
There you go.
And did you hear about that this summer coming up in southern hemisphere? More scientists will be back in research stations. Last southern hemisphere summer was a COVID year. Not too many scientists went down to Antarctica.
Nice.
That
Nice.
is on my bucket list. How do I sign up to do research?
It's hard. You have to get special permission to go down to Antarctica. You have to be a scientist.
I know. I want to
Or a
go.
weatherman.
Or a weatherman. Yeah.
Yeah, Kat, I'll be your assistant, Frankie. Let's go.
Yes. Let's
All
all
right.
go. Road trip.
Road trip.
Antarctica. I'm in.
We're on it. Frankie
Nice.
MacDonald, thank you so much
Yeah,
for doing the
thank you.
weather again.
So good.
We'll bet that you wish you knew if skies will be cloudy or blue. Don't worry or fret, cause your best bet is our weatherman who has plenty to say to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Frankie MacDonald.
Thanks, Frankie. See you next week, buddy.
Best luck to you. I'm Frankie McDonald. You're listening to Roger the Wild Card Show.
All right. Thank you,
And
Frankie.
God
We'll see you in
will
the.
be best on your next show. You
Oh,
have to come
okay.
back inside.
All right. My
All
people
right.
will talk to their people, okay? And we'll get it all figured out.
We'll work it out.
All right,
We'll have
Frankie.
lunch.
I love him. Oh my
I
God. I
love
want to,
him.
Antarctica is definitely on my bucket list, you guys.
I love that. I love that Deb thinks she's going to have a hard time going anywhere. All she's got to be like is, "Can I go to Antarctica?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, yeah, Deb, you can come."
Okay. I want to go. I want to be on a research team.
There you go.
I just really want to go see the penguins.
That's
There
right.
you go.
Oh, yeah.
Led by Frankie MacDonald.
Oh my
Right.
God. I
Frank
would
is
be
awesome.
so in. Oh,
That's what I mean about that India stuff. That guy knows exactly what he's talking about. And he knows exactly
no, guys,
about the
that
weather.
happened. That
Yeah,
happened. I
he's-
was in the middle like this of a live interview,
Mhm.
and the guy's in India, and he kept having to go under the desk in the dark.
Wow.
He's like, "I'm so sorry, but we're
Wow.
having a typhoon," and I'm
He
like,
didn't listen to
what?
our show last
Wow.
Sunday. Yeah.
I was like, "Wait a second,
Wow.
our weatherman talked about this." I was freaking out. It was like live. I was live in India, and it was like I was totally shouting out Frankie. It was so great.
Oh,
Nice.
Wow. That's awesome.
All right, guys, we're going to move on to our guest of the evening. You known him back in the 70s and 80s. He was a major music publicist for great musicians like Prince, Billy Joel, the group Styx. He's also an amazing author. He's got a new book coming out. Please welcome Howard Bloom.
Howard!
It's
Howard.
great to see you.
Hi, Howard. Happy
What a bunch. And
Sunday.
yes, India was socked from the west with a
Yes.
typhoon, and then things reversed, and it was socked from the east by
Yes.
a typhoon.
Yes.
Like being socked in your left cheek first and socked in your
Yeah.
right cheek next.
And Frankie was telling us all that was going to happen, and he was right on
it
the
was
money.
unbelievable, you
Yeah.
guys.
Yep.
Anyway, Howard, it's so good to see you. It's good to have you here.
Well,
Yes.
thanks. It's good to see you too. And Roger, just
Yes.
so you know, I was a science nerd who got
Oh.
into theoretical physics
Yes.
and microbiology at the
Yes.
age of 10, and then ended up in a field that I knew nothing about, popular culture, because popular culture was the culture of the kids who used to beat me up and chase me around the block and throw my hat back and forth and try to humiliate me.
Oh, my God.
And eventually I ended up founding, after knowing nothing about the field, founding the biggest music publicity firm, and worked with Michael Jackson, Prince, Bob Marley, Bette Midler, AC/DC, Aerosmith, Kiss, Queen, Run DMC, Billy Joel, Billy Idol, Paul Simon, Peter Gabriel, David Byrne,
Wow.
and people like that. ZZ Top, Run DMC, Joan Jett, Chaka Khan, little people like that.
Just little
That's
artists. Yeah.
amazing. So
No big
Howard,
deal.
We have a little
That's
bit in
incredible.
common because all these people that you represented in PR, I now insure them.
Amazing.
So I
Astonishing.
got Lionel Richie as a client. We were insuring rest his soul, Michael Jackson, right before his concert.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I have so many stories. We'll talk offline about that. But yeah, what a
That's
small world.
astonishing.
I'm just amazed
Well-
by the fact that you started in one area, and it was like, last week we talked. Why can't I'm spacing on last week?
Scott Page.
Scott
Thank
Page
you,
from
Scott. I'm
Pink
like that. It's been a week. Scott Page last week was amazing too, because he talked about how his beginning was over here and then he went way over here. And you have that same trajectory of like, hey, I was interested in all of this, but now look what I did. And to not just like shift where you want to go, but you shifted and you were like the man. Like you, I mean, things that have been written
Seriously.
about you, about how you worked with these artists back in the day. I mean, they call you the best publicist ever around, like ever. It's just amazing. I'm blown away
Yeah.
by the amount of talent you worked with and all the nice things that they say about you. Congratulations. I mean, it's a fantastic story.
It
Well,
really is.
Here's the crazy stuff, Jimmy. You start out in science, and it gives you a whole different way of looking at things. And when you go into popular culture, which you know nothing about, the people already there are what they call vinyl junkies, people who grew up with popular music. And because they grew up with popular music, they grew up in this narrow culture where in something like publicity, there's a whole set of rituals that are required of you. And you don't question them. You don't ask whether they work or not. But if you're a Martian coming in from outer space, like me, and coming in with the lens of science, you can look at all those rituals as if they're foreign, just totally alien. And you can examine each one to see if it works. And you can throw out the ones that don't work, and you don't care if other people say, but you can't do that.
Yeah.
No, you're so far outside the mainstream of that culture that being rejected is natural. You don't even consider it. So you end up assembling a set of tools, of ways to go about things that really work. So you can take an unknown 19-year-old from Minneapolis who manages on his own through sheer persistence and the quality of his work to have a platinum album before anybody in the country knows who in the world he is. And you can build that person over the course of the next 3 to 4 years to the point where he can be a major superstar, an icon, can have a film of his own, can succeed with that film. You can help make those things happen. But you have to have two things. In your gut, there has to be a little alarm that goes off every great once in a while and says, my Lord, this is a superstar.
Yeah.
Even for a person who's unknown. And that person has to have the work ethic. And it's not just a work ethic. People who are in the arts want to do it every waking minute of the day, every day of the week. And a day off, what would be a day of pleasure for other people, is a day of pain because they're separated from what really makes them tick, being immersed in their art.
Immersed is the word.
Yeah, so you find a person like that, your gut goes off. It happened with Shaka Khan. It happened with Joan Jett. It happened with Prince. And you can use all the skills you've developed by being a Martian, by coming in like an outsider, and use those tools to build somebody who deserves to be built.
That's amazing. Wow.
Question for you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Deborah.
No, I was just going to say, were you representing Prince when he did his movie with Albert McNolly called Purple Rain?
Yes. I was we were in the process of building Prince at that point. I got a call from LA saying Prince is doing this project. You've got to come out to Minneapolis. I spent a week on the set of Purple Rain, but the most important thing, and I wrote 80 pages of press materials for Purple Rain. But the most important point came when I got a call from Bob Cavallo, Prince's manager. And Prince had a team of geniuses. He had Bob Cavallo, he had me, and he had himself. And Bob was brilliant. And Bob called and said, I've been in the editing room for 3 months with this film, and I simply cannot make it a movie. We are showing it to Warner Brothers tomorrow at 10 o'clock. You have to be here. So I flew out to the Warner studio from New York City. On the plane, it was 10 o'clock in the morning, New York time. And on the plane, they were showing a movie. I never watch movies on planes. I have to use my laptop and get work done. That's valuable work time. But I decided to watch the movie. And the movie was, I had been drafted into the film industry by the president of Paramount Pictures in 1973. And so I knew a little bit about movies. And when I read about this movie, it had the perfect cast talking about the perfect subject. It was Susan Sarandon and Richard Dreyfuss. And it was a movie about a single woman who rents out a room to a boarder and eventually falls in love with him. And single women, single moms, were a brand new phenomena. And they had no voice. No one was speaking for them as a group. No one was giving them a sense that they were a group, that they were a united interest. And this film was going to do it. So I knew exactly the kind of marketing memos I would have written at Paramount Pictures for this thing. And I watched it and suddenly realized the movie didn't work. How did I know? Because when you see a good movie and the lights go up at the end, you don't want anybody to see your face. Your face is a wreck because you have a lump in your throat and there are tears in your eyes. And your face is distorted from these weird emotions that the film has created. Well, the lump in the throat meter never happened with this movie. And the tear in the corner of the eye factor never happened in this movie. So when I got to California, when I got to the screening room, I had a piece of new knowledge, a new tool to use. The lump in the throat and the tear in the corner of the eye meter. And it was the biggest screening room I've ever seen for 135 people. Sometimes screening rooms are small enough for 8 people. And Bob Cavallo, Prince's manager, wanted me to sit next to him. I absolutely refused. Why? I had to go to the furthest reaches, way back, where there was nobody sitting at all, because I didn't want anybody to see me. Because if anybody had seen me, especially people with whom I had a professional business relationship, I would have been so conscious of maintaining my image of cool and composure that the lump in the throat and the tear in the corner of the eye thing could never have happened. I needed to be where nobody could see me. And this movie hit me so hard in the gut, so hard in that lump in the throat and tear in the corner of my eye factor, that it took me minutes to compose myself to go back down to see Bob after this film was over. It was one of the most powerful movies I had ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And we all filed into a big conference room and sat around a conference table. And they started with the people at the bottom of the table who were the official film publicists. In other words, you have to have publicists from the Films Guild on your film. That's required, despite my presence and the fact that I was really doing all the work. And they looked like somebody had just strangled their cat.
Oh, God.
They looked incredibly distressed. So it really didn't matter what they said. Their faces said it all. This movie is dead on arrival. It is an abortion. And they went around the table, and when they finally got to me, I stood up and said, if you kill this movie, you are killing a part of film history. Once upon a time, songwriters wrote all the songs, and singers just sang them. And then in 1962, a really audacious bunch of guys came along, 4 of them, and insisted on writing their own songs and singing them. And they changed the nature of popular music in the process. They were called the Beatles. And this is the first time that a musical artist has taken control of his own film and made it from his gut as a personal artistic statement. And it is so powerful that if you try to kill it, which is what they were talking about doing, you will be destroying something that humans must have.
Yeah.
And that speech helped turn things around.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Could you imagine what pop culture would be like without Purple Rain? I mean,
no, I saw it in the theaters.
Horrible.
I saw it at least 50 times in the theater.
Amazing, Deborah.
Seriously, I sat and every detail of that movie was amazing to me. The relationship with the father, and like you said at the end, the lump in the throat. Every time he performs at the end, I cry at the same cue.
It's not even just the movie itself, but it's the soundtrack itself. Imagine if the movie doesn't exist, then the soundtrack doesn't exist. Then those songs.
Happened.
I mean,
that happened to me. Bob Cavallo was coming into New York City. He said, Russ Tyrett at Warner Brothers wants to release one single from the record, and I want to release another single. I want you to listen to these singles. And boomboxes had just been invented, and he had a boombox this big, tiny, in his hotel room. And he played me the song that Russ Tyrett wanted to release, which was Meaningless, Mindless Funk. And then he played me When Doves Cry.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
great
When
song.
Doves Cry put me through the entire plot of that film with every emotion Deborah has been referring to. And this was a film so powerful as a piece of art that you could never express it in words. It had to be expressed in music. The emotion came. The soundtrack was the film. In the emotional sense. And
it's amazing because we play on my internet radio station, we play Purple Rain, and of course we play the whole Purple Rain song. We don't play any edited crappy version of it. And it's one of the few 8-minute songs that you hear and it doesn't feel like 8 minutes. No, it doesn't. It's just one of those songs you listen to and you go, okay, it's over, but it doesn't feel like 8 minutes long. It's just an amazing song. The whole soundtrack was just amazing.
It's like Meatloaf, Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. It's such a long song, but
sometimes it sounds like, sometimes.
Well, then Prince disappeared for a year in France, and it was very hard to get him. We had to get hold of the managers who were in France with him. And then came the word that he had discovered this astonishing new acting talent, who he was going to make the core of his next film, Kristen Scott Thomas. And finally, I got the call from Bob Cavallo. We're going to show the film. This is his second film, Under the Cherry Moon. We're going to show his
I remember that one.
Yes, we're going to show it tomorrow with Warner Brothers at a theater that has 600 seats with little knobs on the arms, so the kids can twist it up when they like the scene and twist it down when they don't like the scene. And you've got to be there. So I flew out. I saw the movie. It was wonderful. It was it didn't have the depth of Purple Rain, but it was absolutely wonderful. So when we walked out into the sunshine, I found Bob Cavallo in the crowd, and I said, I think you've got a movie. Then I got a call 2 weeks later from Bob Cavallo. He said, you've got to be out here tomorrow. Prince has changed the ending of the film. You are not supposed to see it. You are not even supposed to know that he's changed the ending. You've got to be out here tomorrow, see it, and give me your opinion. So when everybody else left the building and the building was locked down, they locked me in a little supply closet with a tiny little VCR and a tiny little 9-inch television. And I watched the new version of Under the Cherry Moon, and it was a disaster. Why? Because in the first version, there was a happy ending and Prince got the girl and you felt really good at the end. In the new version, God had begun speaking to Prince. And the voice of God said, what this scamp you've just created on the Riviera does is immoral. And you cannot stand for immorality. So in the name of morality and my voice, you must kill this figure off at the end. So Prince filmed a new ending. You've just, if you're the viewer, you spent 90 minutes totally invested in this wonderful scamp that Prince portrays, and the woman, Kristen Scott Thomas, that he falls in love with, who he originally is just trying to scam. And everything ends up good and you feel good. In this movie, you invest your 90 minutes, and at the end of 90 minutes, the guy you are invested in is killed off. Your investment, your emotional investment is killed off. It was a terrible experience. And that's the form in which the film came out. Now, Kristen Scott Thomas went on to get Oscar nominations and all kinds of awards in England. If you've ever seen salmon fishing on the Oman, which is just this astonishing film, she makes that film.
Yeah.
And lots of other films. The Horse Whisperer, she's the mother.
Yes. And she was in Four Weddings and a Funeral. Four Weddings and a Funeral.
English Patient.
Yep.
So
the English Patient. Yeah.
Right. So I spent 4 hours on one of those trips to California with Kristen Scott Thomas, trying to find the soul of her work, and found an amazing personality. But Prince had made a mistake because Prince went through a transformation between my very eyes. I was working with him for 7 years. And one day I went out to see him at Nassau Coliseum on Long Island. And I went because I hadn't seen him for a long time and I needed to see his current tour. And the tour, the staging was brilliant. The lighting was brilliant. All things at which Prince was extraordinary. And his performance was brilliant. But midway through the performance, Prince was humping the stage. And all of a sudden his body went limp and lifeless. And for the first 20 seconds, we all thought, well, this is part of the act. And for the next 20 seconds, we began to worry. And for the 20 seconds after that, we thought we should be rushing up on stage and saving him. Obviously, something horrible has happened. And then from 6 stories above us, from the very roof of this huge stadium, we heard a voice. And it was the voice of God talking to Prince. And now, once upon a time, John Mellencamp, we were in his living room in Seymour, Indiana. And John said, I've got to show you 2 movies. And he showed me the movie HUD. And HUD is about this son of a rich cattleman who owns a great big white Cadillac and every day drives into town and picks up women at the local bar and does, it's not explained what with them, but I think we can imagine. And then comes home again. And then one day, the authorities come to his dad and say, there's hoof and mouth disease in this neighborhood. And your cattle, we have to destroy your herd of cattle to keep it from going any farther. And because if they don't destroy that herd of cattle and there's hoof and mouth disease spreading, it'll spread all over the country. And his father, whose entire wealth, all the wealth paid for that big white Cadillac convertible, comes from those cattle. So killing off those cattle is like destroying his 501k and everything he's ever invested in. But he's going to do it. And HUD considers very seriously coming in the middle of the night, stealing the whole herd of cattle, selling it someplace else, which of course will spread the hoof and mouth disease, and pocketing the money because he doesn't want to be the son of a poor man. And then finally he has a revolution and he does things his father's way. And John, when the film was over, John Mellencamp said, okay, Notice what HUD has done. First you rebel against your father. Then you become your father. Well, that voice of God coming from the ceiling at Nassau Coliseum was the voice of Prince's father for all practical purposes, whether it was a heavenly father or not. It was the voice of his real father. And that had begun to speak to him. And that was changing the nature of his entire career. So for the sake of his adherence to a God who had begun to speak through him, he killed a movie. And one more story about Purple Rain. I was in bed for 15 years with an illness, chronic fatigue syndrome. I was too weak to talk and too weak to have another person in the room with me, and wrote 3 books and founded 2 international scientific groups on the internet. And you still there, Deborah? We didn't have your sound.
Sorry. Yes, I said I read all about that. I want to talk about that.
Right. So one day when I got out of bed, finally, I went to the local coffee shop, the Tea Lounge. And why is my phone ringing? And I thought, I was terribly afraid. The 2 most important artists I'd worked with were Prince and Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson had very special importance to me. And I was afraid that the 2 of them had been lost, that Michael Jackson had been lost in the controversy over sexuality, and that the sands of time had just wiped these 2 guys away. And I walked into the Tea Lounge and I was talking to a 17-year-old. And I said, "Have you ever heard of Prince?" And he said, "Prince? Are you kidding, man? Purple Rain is the ultimate makeout movie." Now, Deborah, here's what that meant. We have all kinds of rituals for transition. You know, like your confirmation or your bar mitzvah, for going into adolescence, and your wedding for going into a wedded state, and your funeral for passing away. But we don't have a sufficient transition for going from being a child to being a sexual person. We don't have any confirmation of that at all. And it's one of the biggest, most confusing changes on this planet. And what this kid was telling me is, this movie is the missing ritual for that transition. Now, to know that something is a ritual for something that every human on this planet, no matter what culture, experiences, and that it helps settle the confusion of that moment, was more breathtaking than I can tell you.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that is
I can
amazing.
see that.
Yeah. Well, it that movie came out in, I want to say 1983.
Yeah, 1983.
And it had a huge effect on my life. I went to Japan quickly right after that movie came out, and Prince was everywhere in Japan, everywhere. Billboards,
Amazing.
posters. I was everywhere. Everybody loved the Purple Rain, and that's
Right.
all they played, and all the I went there to dance, and Prince was huge. I have photos literally of me standing under big billboards on the streets of Japan of just Prince. I mean, he was everything. That movie represented so much in that time period. That, I mean, I could go on and on about it. As a matter of fact, with all the deaths that we've had in the last 10 years, at my age now, you start to really recognize this a little bit more. But I will tell you, when Prince passed, I was devastated. I couldn't believe it, because we're the same age, and right around the same age. And I just couldn't wrap my head around it, because I had always thought of him as a genius artist,
Right.
and one of my all-time favorites. And he was so adamant about being so, he was such the adamant. I mean, you can tell me, I mean, he was professional. He was super professional. There was never any
not
story.
only super, but he was totally authentic.
Yes.
He was totally authentic to his nature, even though his nature was bizarre in many ways.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, though, real quick. Now,
Okay,
were
go
you
ahead,
part of the whole transition of when he dropped his name from Prince and became this little sign? I mean,
I was, Prince dropped all of us in 1988. And that was just before he became the artist formerly known as Prince and all of that.
Yeah.
And I felt that Prince, by all of us, I really mean Bob Cavallo and me. And I felt that what he'd done is he'd cut his lifeline to his audience. because the internet would not come along and allow you to connect with people for another 7 or 8 years.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
At that point. So Prince lost his connection with his audience. And without a connection to an audience, an artist is nothing. An artist is a person like you and me who gets up feeling useless to humanity early in the morning, and then encounters his first audience for the day, whatever and whoever that is, and all of a sudden blazes like 1,000 laser beams. That's what used to happen to Bette Midler when she was about to go.
Yeah, that was such a bummer when Prince did that. I remember that too. It was like, wait, what? No, you're Prince.
Yeah, but in radio, we still called the songs Prince. We did. I mean, we
did.
I mean, we kind of maybe every once in a while would joke around and be like, the artist formerly known as Prince. But every Prince song when he was that symbol in radio on the carts would say, my name is Prince. I mean, he put a song out called My Name is Prince and I Am Funky. And, you know, but he's not Prince. And so, you know, even in 94, when he did that song, which was one of my favorite Prince songs, The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, at the radio station, we announced it as Prince, you know? So I understand maybe nobody understands his weird mind back then, but he was a genius. The guy was a freaking genius. And out of the two deaths that Deborah, you know, we're talking about, when he died or Michael Jackson died, when Michael Jackson died, you were kind of like, yeah, I could see that. When Prince died, you were kind of like, what the?
No,
you know,
it was shocking. It was shocking.
I was utterly shocked by both of them. And here's something I used to tell my artists: sometimes you know something and you can put it in words, but you have no idea of what it means. So I used to tell my artists, you don't just owe your audience your songs, you owe your audience your life. And that was true of Prince. It was true of Michael Jackson. They would have sensed it even if I had never put it into words for them. And 20 years later, when I finally got to articulate what I had meant, I realized I was telling these people, look, if you are effective, if that fireball, that supernova inside of you becomes important in enough people's lives, kids, when they reach that age of 11 or 12, when they are going through that transition from childhood to sexuality, they will put your poster on their bedroom walls. And you know what a trellis is for a tomato plant? It's this framework on which the tomato vine grows. But without the framework, the tomato vine just sprawls on the ground and the tomatoes are all spoiled. So you are the trellis, I was saying, on which these kids will grow. You are the role model on which they will grow. So you don't just owe your audience your songs. You owe your audience your life. And if your authenticity demands that you become the artist formerly known as Prince, and everybody around you says, no, you cannot do that. If it's something you deeply must do, you deeply must do it. Because someday, that thing that everybody thought was so eccentric and would lose you all your followers will speak on behalf of a whole bunch of followers who will resonate to its frequency and find themselves in it.
That's awesome.
And will find themselves validated by it.
Yeah.
Now, I know you worked with a lot of artists. Besides Prince, what other artists have you enjoyed the most working with?
Well, the most is Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was simply bowl me over astonishing. He was unlike any human I had ever imagined could exist on the face of this planet. First of all, when I was 10, the thing that got me into science was this book that appeared in my lap in my family's living room in Buffalo, New York. And it said the first 2 rules of science are these: the truth at any price, including the price of your life, and look at things right under your nose as if you've never seen them before, and then proceed from there. Michael Jackson was the living incarnation of those first 2 rules of science. He lived for his audience. He would not let anybody harm his audience. He was their protector. One day I got a call at 4:00 in the afternoon saying, you got to be out here by 11 o'clock tonight. Out here means LA. Michael Jackson is canceling his tour and you're the only one he will listen to. So I flew out to LA with my little red $19.99 nylon red knapsack with my laptop in it and a spare shirt and a razor blade, and drove to the address that I'd been given. And it was a studio lot, which is a really eerie sight at night because there are these buildings the size of aircraft hangars, and if there's any light within them, those buildings are so big they swallow the light entirely. And only one of those studios all of them looked like derelict dinosaurs, and only one of them was lit. And I went into that one, and Michael and his brothers were rehearsing on a 110-foot stage. And they give you an example of what a 110-foot stage is. When ZZ Top decided to take Texas culture to the world, and they had the mayor of Houston name me the ambassador of Texas culture to the world. They built a stage in the shape of the state of Texas, tilted slightly toward the audience, so that no matter where you were, you could see it was shaped like the state of Texas. And it was 75 feet wide. It was enormous. The Jackson's stage was 110 feet.
Wow.
Almost 50% bigger. It was the biggest stage you'd ever seen in your life. When they were finished rehearsing, we all filed out to a little dressing trailer. And Deborah, you've been in dressing trailers, but if you've never seen one, it's this giant extended RV that's been turned into a dressing room. It's huge. So we filed into the dressing trailer. There were 2 banquettes of these scarlet plastic benches. The brothers sat on one side. There was a catty corner, tiny little seat. It was next to the stairway. That was obviously the throne. So Michael took that, and I sat on a bench all alone to Michael's immediate left. And Michael explained to me why he was canceling his tour. He said, my brother Jackie has come down with a bone chip in his knee. Well, I knew that because I had flown out to LA to do the press conference with the surgeons who had tried to arthroscopically remove the bone chip. And he said the doctors said that Jackie would be better in 6 weeks, but he's not. And Jackie is the best dancer I have ever seen in my life. Yes, and the best choreographer. Now imagine Michael Jackson, who has studied everybody from Fred Astaire to James Brown in detail, saying that about his brother Jackie. Yeah. And he said, look, a year ago, I signed 100 of absolutely the most brilliant people I could find who were at the stages to create the sound system, to create the magical effects for this tour. And I wanted to come as an utter surprise to my audience. I want to just open my kids up with awe and wonder. And I can't do that unless I have the best dancer in the world. So I'm going to have to postpone this tour. And when Michael was talking about his kids, you got to remember something here. Michael was given the gift of an awe, wonder, and surprise, unlike anything you've ever seen on the planet. I can tell you the story of how I found that out in a minute. And Michael felt that because God had given him this gift, it was his job to give that gift to his kids, his audience worldwide. And when Michael talked about the need to defend his kids and give them the most astonishing experience anyone had ever seen, I had a vision. I saw his ribs as golden gates. I saw them swing open. I saw 10,000 kids in his chest. His commitment to those kids, to their awe, wonder, and surprise was absolute. That meant more to him in life than anything. That's the truth at any price, including the price of your life. So I explained to Michael what damage this would do. Huge, enormous damage to this tour, because the tour was being attacked all over the place. Why? Because Michael wanted the tour to be a surprise. So he had signed all these 100 super talents to NDA contracts, non-disclosure agreements, to utter secrecy. Why? So that he could surprise his audience with the kind of surprise he gets from everyday life. And he was being attacked by people, especially Dave Marsh, who was highly influential and was Bruce Springsteen's biographer, who said, look, we know everybody in the business. Nobody we know has been hired to do the staging. The stage is going to collapse. Nobody we know has been hired to do the sound system, so the sound system is going to electrocute the performers. Nobody we know has been hired to do the lighting system. So 4-story to 6-story high towers are going to collapse on the heads of the audience and kill kids. And nobody we know has been hired to do security, which means gangs are going to be running up and down the aisles with big knives, ripping people's guts out. And you dare not send your kid to one of these concerts. And I explained this to Michael and said, look, if you cancel the tour, it's going to validate this idea that this tour is amateur land and you have to go out on time. whether Jackie is better or not, or you will lose your kids. Parents will not send their kids to these shows. And Michael relented. So, but it was this confrontation, which was like Moses and who knows, Muhammad, each with a powerful vision, revealing that vision, like parting the Red Sea. And I just can't tell you how breathtaking that image was, because I don't have visions. I have a sense, a gut sense, when I meet a superstar and exactly how that person can be turned into a superstar, but not visual visions.
Right. The thing about Michael Jackson, though, is that he's very connected to his audience. And, you know, that's one amazing thing about him as an artist is he knows how to relate to the audience. He connects with them very well. He's just not, he's not on stage doing his show. He knows how to, take his eye and look at the audience in the eye and be like, and build that connection with them. And then
because he is them and they are him. A friend of mine, Jaak Panksepp, who is the leading researcher on human emotion of the 20th century, did an experiment where he took a bunch of children mice kids, and he took them away from each other so they couldn't play. There's a certain period of life in a mouse when it just plays. And then he put them back as adults into their colonies, and he watched. And it turns out that the way you have sleep deprivation, mice have play deprivation. If they don't get the requisite amount of play and they are finally exposed to each other in adulthood, they will take that requisite amount of play. Michael started rehearsing with his brothers at the age of 6. He was on stage at professional theaters at the age of 9. He was playing for kings and queens. He had no childhood.
Yeah.
No,
None.
he didn't.
So Michael was suffering from childhood deprivation the way those mice were suffering from play deprivation.
Yeah.
So those children
Amazing.
Michael carried around inside of his chest, those were the children of what he needed to be and express in some way during his life. So as I said, those kids were him and he was those kids. And one day...
It makes total sense too.
Well, one day his
that.
manager, Frank DeLeo, came to me, and Frank was the stupidest man I ever met in show business, but that's another subject. And Frank came to me and said, look, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but every night before Michael goes on stage, you know how artists have to psych themselves up for 45 minutes before they go on a stage? Michael psychs himself up by having me find 2 kids dying of cancer who want more than anything else in life to meet Michael Jackson, and he has me bring them backstage. And he spends that 45 minutes with those kids. So talk about kids are Michael, and Michael is those kids. Michael was getting validation. He had a pre-audience to warm him up, but a pre-audience that existed in his soul, in his chest, in his empathic center. It's a pre-audience who were him for all practical purposes. So and the most remarkable experience I had with Michael, aside from this vision, was the day Michael was supposed to have a meeting with his art director to decide on the artist to do the album cover for the Victory Tour album. And I was at Marlon Jackson's pool house. The pool house is a little building just big enough for 1 room on the first floor and 1 room on the second floor. And in the 1 room on the first floor, the walls were lined with arcade games, which of course nobody human could possibly afford in those days, and much less a whole wall of them. And there was a pool table in the center of the room. So the brothers always did this for some reason. They positioned me at the very center and they flanked me on either side at the pool table. And we were looking over potential merchandise, potential tour jackets, potential t-shirts. And I was trying to explain to them, you try to put on the most astonishing show anyone has ever seen. Your tour jackets, your t-shirts, everything you sell has to be the most astonishing anybody has ever seen to live up to your standards, to reflect who you really are. And all of a sudden, I heard the screen door open. Now, I did not grow up among other human beings. I grew up with lab mice and guinea pigs. As other kids just chased me around the block, and that was it. So I don't know human rituals. But when I was 19 years old, somebody had tried to show me that if a person enters the room that everybody wants you to meet, you walk over, you stick out your hand, you say, hi, my name is Howard, And the other person sticks out his hand and says, "Hi, my name is Michael." So I had never done that in my life. And I had read at least 1,000 articles, a stack of papers this thick on Michael Jackson. And they all said Michael Jackson is a bubble baby. And if you reach out a hand to him, he will withdraw from your touch in fear. So the screen door was opening. Somebody was halfway through it. I knew it was Michael. I walked over. I stuck my hand out. I said, "Hi, I'm Howard." Michael stuck his hand out and said, "Hi, I'm Michael," and put his hand in mine. And it was a normal handshake. And I said, "Look, I've got a press release to read to you. Where can I read it to you?" He said, let's go up to the second floor. The second floor was filled with amplifiers and keyboards to the ceiling. So Michael found a spot to sit on one amplifier. I found a spot to sit on the other amplifier. Now you have to understand something. I've been working at my writing since I was 16 years old with intense ferocity. I edited the literary magazine at NYU. We won 2 National Academy of Poets prizes. I take this stuff really seriously. And I was reading him a simple press release. But presidents of companies of the size of mine do not write press releases. Why did I write all the press releases? Why did I write all the bios?
Why did you, Howard?
I had tried to connect with the very soul of each of my artists. And there's no way I could get that across to a writer and then have a writer get that across to somebody else.
Yep.
My only way to get that across and my only way to inform my staff as to what I had seen in the artist was to write the damn things myself. So Michael was sitting on one amplifier, I was sitting on another, and I started to read this press release. And Michael went, "Oh, oh, oh, oh," as I went through each paragraph. And when I got to the end, he said, "Man, that was beautiful. Did you write that?" And I said, "Yes, I had written it." No one in my entire working life had ever or would ever see the art hidden in every single sentence of that press release. No one but Michael Jackson. Then we went downstairs for the meeting with the art director.
Wow.
And she walked in with 5 of the most gorgeous portfolios you've ever seen in your life, hand-tooled leather, hand-tooled cherry wood, and they were from the masters, the legends of illustration. And she shoved the first one across the table. And Michael and I, his left elbow was against my right elbow. His left shoulder was against my right shoulder. His left knee was against my right knee. And the brothers sandwiched us in tightly together because they were flanking us on either side. And we stood on one side of the billiard table. The art director stood on the other. And she shoved the first portfolio across the table at us. It was by an artist named Michael Whalen, whose work is mind-blowing. And Michael opened the first page so that he could only see 1 square inch of that picture. And his knees began to buckle. And he went, "Oh, oh, oh, oh." It was the only time in my entire life I've ever been there when a person is having an aesthetic orgasm. It was the second law of science come to life in a way I had never imagined it could be. And that second law is look at things right under your nose as if you've never seen them before and then perceive them from there. The law of awe, wonder, curiosity, and surprise. Michael
like a true child.
Yes, he was amazing. You could see that he saw an infinite in the tiniest of the page that even the artist had never seen.
Yeah.
It was a stunning
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, he's definitely my favorite artist to listen to musically. I mean, I can listen to all of his stuff all the time.
He was the closest to a saint or an angel I've ever met. And in my book, Einstein, Michael Jackson, and Me, A Search for Soul in the Power Pits of Rock and Roll, which is about these adventures in the human soul that I took with Michael Jackson and Prince and Bob Marley and all kinds of other people like that.
What a beautiful journey.
Yeah.
It was an astonishing journey. I mean, Deborah, imagine being a scientist who wants to get to the essence of soul and see it through the lens of science. And not just to see it, but to experience it. Because without experiencing it at its full force, you can't see it. And being given the gift of being with some of the greatest greatest souls of the late 20th century, and having an open entree to their hearts, to their guts, to the gods inside of them, and being the caretaker of those gods inside, of that soul inside the artist. It is a far more astonishing form of expedition, scientific expedition, than any I can possibly imagine in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we only
It's
covered
astounding.
two, and I sit here and I look at this list, and I'm like, we could spend
Yeah.
hours talking to you about this stuff because, I mean, you brought up Mellencamp. I could talk to you about Mellencamp for hours, and I mean, just some of these artists are just. I mean, you work with Kiss. I mean, it's 1 hour doesn't cut it because I mean, we could have you back and talk about all of these artists, and I'm sure you have great stories on all of them. So
you know what I found really, what I found
that,
really
Deborah?
profound when I was really reading about your journey, and I listened to one of your shows on your YouTube channel about depression, and then I had no idea that you suffered from this, you know, the sleep and the debilitating. There's a whole survivor aspect to your story, and I'm really intrigued with that because it's really timely with what's going on right now, where people are more aware of what's going on with these traumas or these things that we all go through. And I was so intrigued when I was reading about what you've been through. Can you speak about that just a little bit? Because it's pretty.
We learn from the traumas, and our task is to extract the joys and create and turn them into ladders on which we can climb far beyond those traumas, far, far beyond them. So in a sense, I was lucky to be that sick for 15 years. I was lucky to be isolated in a room, unable to speak for 5 years.
Wow.
And unable to have another person in the room with me.
Awesome way to even look at that. That's just, yeah.
Imagine how I would ever have known what that experience is.
Yeah.
If I hadn't been thrown into it. And since you are what you know, not just at this level, but at this level. That expanded my horizons. It was a gift. And look how I had to survive. There was this new thing called the internet. I'd been on it since 1983. I envied the scientist who's been on it since the 1970s. When I first got on it, Peter Gabriel saw me. It was this vast, dark, empty space. There were no pictures. There were no websites. There was nothing but emptiness and words. And Peter found me there. He was a former client. And Peter was so intimidated by the emptiness that he rushed over to say hello as if I was the first person to visit him on an isolated island in 20 years. So I was given the gift of finding a way to create. I had lost all my humanity. You carry around with you every day a sense of what you expect to achieve in life. And if you get that sick, all of it disappears.
Yep.
You know you can achieve none of it. You are stripped of the very thing that makes you feel human. And so I was given the gift. It took me 3 years of constructing my identity or finding a way to translate my identity onto the internet, because it was the only medium of communication I had with my fellow human beings. And that's when I wrote 3 books and founded 2 international scientific groups, when I was too weak to talk. I turned around the whole perception in evolutionary biology of something called group selection through a 6-column page on the front, or a 6-column story on the front page of the New York Times science section that I got there. And it changed the whole perception of this thing called group psychology while I was too weak to talk.
Yeah, that's amazing. My head is just trying to process this, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, how do I ask this question? But it's not really a question; it's just a statement. I'm sitting here thinking, you have this crippling disease at this point, right? And you're too weak to talk. You're too weak to get up, but you did all of this stuff. It's amazing to know that you went through it and you didn't give up. And then when you got better, you didn't like, oh my God, I just lost 15 years of my life. God damn it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. You found a positive of the situation.
Yeah, you came out of it and said, okay, well, you know what? I'm better now. I'm going to go out to a coffee shop. You know, it's amazing. That you
thought it was a gift.
Yeah, exactly. The way you respond to it is just amazing. The fact that you said I was lucky to be that sick for 15 years, because most people would be like, I lost 15 years of my life and I'm never getting it back. And, you know, that's just an amazing outlook for it.
Well, the general rule is you have to take every form of suffering and turn it into a ladder.
Yeah.
And you have to find the next level of joy. And you have to know that joy is there. We are so post-traumatic stress syndrome fixated that we see the torture without seeing the gift. And you need the gift to save you from the torture. You cannot allow yourself to drown in these things and be overcome by them. That's not what human life or life itself is all about. Life was born in catastrophe on the planet of climate disaster, not just climate change, climate disaster, 3.8 billion years ago or so. So life has been up against taking every disaster and turning it into an opportunity for 3.85 billion years. And if we can't do as well as green algae did in turning catastrophe into opportunity, why the hell are we here? It is our job to make sure.
I really wish you could get out there with that message more for people these days, because we have turned into a society of just, everything is wrong and I can't. Your message is amazing, and I wish more people could hear it, because that's the way I think you've got to look at these things and not just be like, oh, woe is me, and put your head down and walk around like Charlie Brown out the door. You need to have
some
that.
People are very debilitated with mental illness and traumas, and they don't have the steps or the tools.
Yeah,
and
I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the people that I don't know, lost their wallet and my whole life is ruined. I'm talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that got a flat tire and they think their life is over because they got a flat tire.
Howard, how did you know that you had this debilitating thing starting to happen? What were the signs? Like, how did you know that you were headed into something unknown?
Well, I flew down to North Carolina. Chris Blackwell, the guy who discovered Bob Marley, and had founded Island Records and Island Pictures, kept me around as a brain trust for 10 years, which was strange because Chris would generally latch onto a new toy and throw them away after 18 months. He didn't keep anybody. And Chris had discovered these people named Womack and Womack. And one was, the daughter of Sam Cooke. And the other had co-written the song that was the Rolling Stones' first hit. So they were from distinguished black gospel families. And I flew down to North Carolina. I took a 5-hour trip by Jeep out to get to their place. It was March 10th. It was cold out. They had this, again, aircraft hangar-like building that was going to be their new home, but no furniture was in there and it had no heat. So I sat there on the cold floor for 6 hours trying to find their soul. And it was an amazing experience. Then took another 5-hour Jeep trip back to the airport and organized my notes on my laptop while I was flying back. And something very strange happened. I forgot my laptop on the plane. It had never happened to me before. And then I started to come down with cold symptoms. And I was able to make it into the office on Monday. I don't know how. I can't remember that day. Tuesday, I was so weak that my staff had to pick me up in a fireman's carry, one person under each armpit, and drag me out to the elevator and drag me downstairs and throw me in a car from car service and send me home. I don't know why they had any confidence I could make it up my stairs to my own apartment. And I lay there for 3 months. And I thought I just had a flu of some sort.
Wow.
And then I slowly got better. And when I got better, I thought, wow, I'm all better. So one day I walked.
What was your turning point?
It was no turning point, because here's what happened. So I thought I was all better. I love walking. I had a little pedometer on my belt. I walked over to Atlantic Records from my office at Lexington Avenue and 55th Street. I walked over to CBS Records. I put it 7 miles on my pedometer. I was having a great time. The next day I had a concert at the Meadowlands with one of my bands opening for Metallica, the Scorpions. Then John Mellencamp was playing Carnegie Hall, and I was like, we were attached at the hip, John and I. So the mere fact that I could only come for 45 minutes of his show and only watch it from backstage was not nice. It wasn't good. But at Metallica's event, I had a stand in an outdoor stadium for 3 hours. And then I had a stand backstage watching John Mellencamp. And then the next night I had Cyndi Lauper graduating from high school, because she had never graduated. She dropped out. And now her high school was so proud of her, they were giving her a high school diploma. So,
wow.
So I had to head out to Queens to do that. And by the time I was finished, weird things started happening, and I started to get very sick again. And the Womax wanted me to manage them. And I was having meetings with the president of Island Records laying on his couch, and with Cyndi Lauper's manager laying on his couch, because that's all I could do. And finally, I was shivering as if it were freezing when it was 90 degrees out. And I was sweating as if it were 100 degrees when it was 40 degrees out. And
unbelievable.
And my doctor had no clue as to what I might have, none at all. And finally, I had to walk into my office and say to my staff, I'm giving you the business. I'll be out of here in 2 weeks. I don't know whether I'm dying or not, but I have to get out.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I basically spent the next 5 years with. At first, I was able to make trips into New York. Leon Uris, the famous novelist, fell in love with my first book, The Lucifer Principle, when it was still a rejected manuscript. And I managed to take the car service into town to have lunch with him. But then I had to lay in the back of the car on the way home. And I was only able to do a few of those meetings. And then finally, I was totally incapable of any of those things. And it took me 3 years to learn that I had to stop trying to struggle to get to my front room, where my whole front of my house is an office. We discovered that living rooms, our form of living, is working. So we might as well turn every inch into an office space, with the exception of the bedroom. And I would struggle up to my front room, the office, to my favorite office chair, and try to work. And every month I'd be able to work less and less and less and less. And finally, I had an idea. I got my assistant to set up 2 computers next to the bed, because in those days, 2 computers had less computing power than your cell phone has today. With a single monitor and a single keyboard, right, and a little box, a Chinese box to transfer between the machines. And we put a giant bolster on the back of the keyboard so that I could see it when I was laying flat. And I learned to stop trying to sit up. And when I stopped trying to sit up after 5 years, my voice began to come back. But it was that keyboard that saved my life. It was that keyboard that allowed me to communicate with people all over the world, in Moscow, in Serbia, in Australia, in Israel, in Germany, in Holland, all over the place.
This is an unbelievable story.
It is. How do they find what, I mean, how did you get better? I guess is my, like, what was the method of, how was that journey? How did that happen?
Jimmy, I started reading chronic fatigue syndrome because that's what I had. I mean, I diagnosed myself and I told my doctor that's what I had. And then my doctor came back 3 years later and he said, thank God you taught me about chronic fatigue syndrome. I'm now seeing it in many of my patients. And I started getting every newsletter there was on the subject, mostly a newsletter from the New England Chronic Fatigue Syndrome Institute in Boston. They were really terrific. And my wife managed to convince, it's my first wife because I lost her because of chronic fatigue syndrome. And she managed to convince a chronic fatigue syndrome doctor to visit me because I could not get out. I couldn't go down my stairs, much less get into Manhattan for a meeting at his office. And he said, the most important thing he said was, here's an email address. And he wrote it out on a little slip of paper. I want you to contact this woman. She's another patient of mine in Texas. And the two of us on the internet, because that's all we had available to us. That was our geography, the internet. That was our world. The two of us, when I would find something promising, she would go find the doctor who had first prescribed it for CFS and get the precise protocol of how he used it. And we would get that protocol back to our doctor. And it would take our doctor 6 months to sit on it. You know how something that you rejected first because it threatens your sense of identity, and then it goes down to your gut somewhere and you forget where you got it from. And then it bubbles back again as your idea and you finally embrace it. So we had to go through that 6 month period with our doctor before he would give us the prescriptions. for the
That's
stuff.
crazy.
And I take 30 drugs a day. Now,
Wow.
if you ever see the film, The Grand Unified Theory of Howard Bloom, the 66-minute award-winning documentary
No.
about me, you'll see that I'm taking 30 pills a day.
I'm giving
myself.
I'm going to watch it. I'm so intrigued by this story.
I'm giving myself a great big shot every morning. My doctor taught my wife how to do it. My wife taught me how to do it. So, you keep experimenting. You've got a scientific mindset. You keep notes on how you are. You compare the things you take with how you are. And when something seems to work, you deny yourself it. You take yourself off of it for 3 months and reintroduce it to see if that was just an accidental correlation or if there's actually any relationship there. And you work very carefully and very methodically, and you have 15 frigging years in which to do it. And I finally was really lucky that the combination that I worked out worked. And my doctor was kind enough to let me take things he would never personally have prescribed.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So
Wow.
now,
I hope you're writing a book about this journey.
there's no time. I have 2 more books I have to write.
I got no time. I got more books to write.
Right. It takes 5 years. Takes 5 years to write a book.
I find it a very inspiring thing because a couple of years ago, I got semi-diagnosed with this thing called Meniere's disease, which affects your inner ear.
Right,
and
exactly. Your balance.
Yeah, and I've been dealing with that for 3 years now. And I just, when you said 30 pills a day and you take things that out and in, I was taking 30 different vitamins a day and taking things that, I mean, it was exactly your journey of how many things you're taking just to see if anything fixes the issue. And I go to doctors and they look at me and they go, yeah, you just got to deal with it. And it's like, what? But yeah, your journey is inspiring. I'm going to check out your documentary because
I'm going to.
I'm always inspired by people that overcome that stuff.
This is going to sound terribly arrogant, but Meniere's can be a lesson because everybody has a frame of reference they take for granted. And part of that frame of reference comes from the vestibular system, the thing that's affected by Meniere's disease. Look, the idea that humans could stand on the tiny little feet we have is impossible. Yeah. It goes against the law of gravity, nature's most basic law. It's like balancing a well-sharpened pencil on its tip. It simply cannot be. And a piece of software up here manages to make it so natural for us to go from a horizontal position on the bed to putting our feet on the floor and then standing up and defying gravity like that pencil all day long.
Yep.
And we take it for granted. And Meniere's disease is a lesson in how artificial these frames of reference are and what a gift they are and how we've got to cherish the ones that we've got. But we've also got to see them from the outside as if we were aliens coming to this planet for the very first time.
It's amazing. And what you just said is more than I've gotten from anybody I've gone to talk to on this. What you just said, I mean, you hit it right on the nail on the head. And most people look at me and they go, Meniere's disease, what the hell's that? I've never heard of it. And you just explained all of it in one paragraph. So thank you for doing that because most people, when I say I may have Meniere's disease, because that's the one thing you do, I may, they look at you like, what's that? And it's like, well, it's just hearing loss, but it's not. I mean, there's a lot more to it.
No, it's not hearing loss.
And these are specialists, and then here's Howard explaining it all to you.
But I do appreciate where he's coming from because that's why I've made it a journey, because obviously one of the things with Meniere's disease that happens is you lose hearing. And I've lost a great deal of hearing in my left ear. That's why I do this, if you notice, because it bothers the hell out of me. But I've made it a mission to enjoy as much music as I can while I still have hearing in my right ear and a little bit in my left ear. And I'm going to listen to all my music every day as long as I can before it sounds. So, but again, I didn't get this and go, God, I can't, and I'm not doing that. And it is what it is. You accept it and you persevere through it and you live your life because it's a challenge and life isn't easy. Life is not even close to being easy. So it's just a challenge.
We're afflicted right now with a philosophy that focuses on the trauma and doesn't focus on the bridge. It doesn't focus on the ladder that you build with the elements of the trauma that you're given. It focuses on the debility, not the opportunity. Yeah. And it focuses on the grief, not the joy. In fact, it teaches us to experience grief and to wallow in it. And you cannot live that way. Life did not survive the early days of this planet when this planet was being whacked by what are called planetesimals, like you're hitting your pudding with the back of a tablespoon. And yet life managed to not just overcome these problems, but employ a lot of these problems in its machinery. Yeah. And we are the heirs to that life. And we cannot be allowed to be told that the Slough of Despond is the natural state of things. No, the Slough of Despond is where all the lessons are, where all the gifts are, where all the joys can be found. And as Deborah referred to, I had clinical depression for the first 50 or 60 years of my life. And that means being depressed every second of every minute of every day and having to fight your way through it. And the only reason I'm not in that state now, well, there are probably a lot of reasons, but it's all the stuff I had to do to adapt to chronic fatigue syndrome, including all the drugs that I've been forced to take, have somehow gotten me out of that clinical depression.
Well, that's
so
good.
I'm in, yeah. But
you're amazing.
But the bottom line is essential. Joy is the most elusive thing in life. And when you've got it, you grab it and you build on it.
Amen.
You're an amazing human being, Howard.
Absolutely, Howard.
Seriously, Howard. We could talk all night.
Not
There's
just,
so many
not
things
just
I want
on
to
your,
add.
not just on your successes, but just to hear you speak about other things. You're just amazing. So yeah, we should definitely have you back and talk about more.
Oh,
more
for
things.
sure,
Howard,
absolutely.
It's just amazing.
I know now that you and I have a friend in common in New York.
Who's that?
You know my buddy Ron Delsner.
Oh, Ron. Oh, I haven't seen him in years.
I haven't seen him in 10 years, but I was just thinking, I used to live on 51st and Lex. So
amazing.
It just came to me. I'm like, I bet he knows Ron Delsner.
Well, the most dapper man in show business way back then. But
I've
Ron
never
would be
met him,
older than you are by 20 years. And he'd be older than I am by possibly 10 years. So he's getting up there.
Maintaining
maintaining dapperness at the age of 85 is not easy.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
No.
Howard Bloom, thank you very much for coming onto our show. We're going to definitely bring you back on again.
Amazing.
There's a lot of things I want to talk to you about on another episode, like your bagel theory of the universe, how you predicted it, predicted dark energy. So
yes, 38 years in advance.
Yeah, we definitely have to have Howard back because I also want to talk to him about this, about fighting censorship in music back in '86. And because that's very important to me, censorship and fighting it. So
it's a battle that goes on today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I definitely want to talk to you about all that stuff. So yeah, we got to have you back real soon, Howard.
Yeah. Okay, we'll have you on the next few episodes.
You've been an absolute pleasure. This has been a delight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Howard.
Thank you, Howard, for your time and just all your brilliance. And oh my God, like I said, this could go on all night.
Yeah,
I have so many questions.
That's why we're going to have a second episode with Howard Bloom.
Right, we'll do it soon. I'll have my people get in touch with your people.
Exactly.
Deal.
How's that?
Easy peasy.
Okay. All right. Have a great night, gang.
Thanks, Howard.
All right. Thank you, Howard.
Wow.
Incredible man. Wow.
That's just
blown away. His eloquence in conveying his thoughts is incredible, and he's just an incredible guy. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely will never forget the lesson he just taught us about taking your trials and turning them into ladders. That is just incredible. I'm just like, wow, that is really powerful. And
here's the one thing. Here's the one thing I found
that much experience.
The one thing I found amazing in his stories and when he was talking about Prince and Michael Jackson, and when he was talking about Michael Jackson, is how he just spoke of Michael Jackson in the way he knew him, and not the way society thinks they know Michael Jackson, but just the way he knew him. And he didn't get into any of the other stuff. He mentioned it because it was a part of something that was going on, but he didn't talk about it. He just, and he just talked about the person he knew. Yeah. And that was just an amazing story to hear, and hear how he talked about somebody he knew on a personal level and not this person that everybody thinks they know. Mm-hmm. I could have listened to him talk about Michael Jackson and Prince for 5 hours straight. It was just
Michael Jackson obviously had a respect for Howard.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You could totally tell there.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic guy guest, and I'm gonna go check out his documentary because I'm definitely interested in.
Me too. I'm so intrigued. Like I said, I was more intrigued when I read about his journey. His journey to me was so eye-opening, and so like to go through a 15-year period where you don't know what's wrong with you is most people just give up.
Right.
I mean, my God, the endurance that it takes to I mean, just the fact that he doctored himself, he diagnosed himself. I mean, just the powerful mindset that this man has.
Right.
Oh my God, it's beyond.
Yeah, and I liked what he said is like how you go back, 3.8 billion years we've survived and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
like,
we survived saber-toothed tigers.
Right. But what I'm amazed at is that in the way we live now is like in my situation, I woke up one day and there it was. I woke up in the morning, ear was completely clogged. It felt like somebody took a bunch of stuff in my ear and just I couldn't hear anything out of it. And then 2 days later, it turned into this loud buzz that has been going on for 3 years. And you're expected, hey, go back, just go to work on Monday. Go to work and, you got to go to work, and you do. That's the thing. You go to work and you deal with it and the whole, it's just amazing how our human psyche does things and how things have changed and how some people might just curl up and go, you know what, I'm done with that. Like I can't hear out of my left ear. I'm going to cry.
Jimmy, I was going to say, when you were telling your story, I'm thinking, my God, this is a guy that wears earphones and has music. And, like you just said, most people would be like, forget it. I can't do it because that ringing is just got to be so intense.
But it made you want to appreciate the music more and just keep enjoying the music.
Yeah, I do. And that's like, so I remember talking to somebody when this first happened to me, and I remember I broke down, and I don't do that often, but I broke down, and it wasn't about how am I going to live, or it was just about like I love music, and the idea of not being able to hear music correctly anymore was just like earthshake. Like I can do my job and hear a buzz all day and deal with it, but like I want to put on a record and listen to it and hear it, and I don't hear it correctly anymore. I don't hear it the way I used to. I can still hear it good enough, but no, I don't. And that was the only thing I kept thinking about was my, music, like how I enjoy it. It's my life, it's part of
and
my
you
life.
and I being radio disc jockeys. I mean, that's our thing is hearing the music. So taking 50% of that away from you, that's detrimental. And, but you're finding a positive out of it. You're still, saying, I'm going to listen to my music. I don't care if it's 50%. I'm still going to enjoy, and I'm still going to DJ, and I'm still going to do what I need to do because it's my love. It's my passion.
There are days where this becomes like I'm angry about it, and I might be a little short tempered with people and be negative. But for the most part, most days I deal with it pretty well. It's a gift. You wake up every morning and it's the first thing that greets you. You open your eyes and you're like, okay, I'm alive. Yay. Let's do it. Let's get through the day.
There's a whole change in mindset, right? Like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. When you get up at 2 a.m. to go to the bathroom and you're like, oh, okay, thank you. Thanks for reminding me you're still there. I know you're still there. Don't worry about it. So, but you're right. I mean, Howard spoke so eloquently about it and just how, he got through it. And he is who he is now, and he doesn't look back at that time and go, I lost 15 years of my life. And, damn it. And
he gained. It's like the saying about Thomas Edison. I have 1,000 ways to tell you how not to do something. And that's his story. He's got 15 years of experience now where he can help other people that are misdiagnosed or they don't know what's wrong with them or why can't they, he's got all this experience. That's why I said, you've got to write a book. Because can you imagine all the people that are out there that have these symptoms, and so many people walk around undiagnosed today. There's thousands of things that it could be. But the fact that he kind of has been working, and the fact that he's a scientist, forget the music.
That's the most
forget the music
thing is that I'm amazed by these stories of people that started off over here and then we're like, oh, I'm going to go do this. But they didn't just go do it. They did it with some of the biggest names ever.
Right.
And he's just like, well, I was in science and I was doing science, but then I decided to go into this. And now I'm just working with all these famous people. So,
amazing.
That's
no big deal.
Amazing. It's just amazing. And not only did he work with him, he crafted them to be who they were, and
Yeah.
he was great
And
at
build
it.
relationships with
Yeah.
them too.
I can't wait to have him back. So
Yeah.
No, we're definitely
Yeah.
going to have him back.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's got like what 6 books, and he's.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah, and I
even
don't read, so I'm gonna probably read. I want to read his latest book. Is that out now, Roger? Do you have the information on his latest book?
His new book is called Einstein, Michael Jackson, and Me. A Search for Soul in the Power Pits of Rock and Roll. That's his new current book.
Well, we all have to get it, read it, and then have
I am
him
gonna
back
read it.
and watch his documentary. And if you
And
get
we're
a chance,
Jim, let's
go
put
to his-
the link of the documentary on the podcast here so everybody else could have access
Yeah,
to it.
and by
Yeah.
the way, our guests should know too that they should go to his YouTube channel. He is filled with knowledge, and I was watching a lot of his YouTube today, and I was like, wow. Oh my God,
Yeah, I'm
I'm
gonna have
blown
to
away
check that
because
out, too.
I'm very intrigued with people who have these survival stories.
Yeah.
I love a good survival story. And I started listening to him and I was like, what? Wait a second. This guy has a whole different world. It's not just
Mhm.
about Prince and Michael
Yeah.
Jackson. He's a story in himself.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
So there's going to
amazing.
be a part 2 to this interview.
Yes.
So we will plan that one. We'll get that one scheduled on the books with him as well.
Good. Perfect.
Thank you.
Awesome. I thank you guys again for another fun, exciting episode. Deborah Driggs, Star, Jimmy Knight. Also,
Awesome.
Oh, wait,
Chicago's
I gotta-
VarietyStation.com.
I gotta stop you. I stopped this theme song, the close. I totally forgot. You were supposed to remind me. So my brother-in-law made that for me for my birthday. My lovely, beautiful bride called him up at the last minute. He works for a sign design company in Georgia. She called him at the last minute on Monday and said, "Can you make my husband a sign for his internet radio station?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna," because they were coming to visit this week, and he's like, "I don't know if I could pull it off." Not only did he pull it off, it's freaking beautiful. Look at that.
It is.
So he works at Sign Design and Fabrication in Dahlonega, Georgia. So if you are somewhere in Dahlonega, Georgia, go to Sign Design and Fabrication. They make wonderful, beautiful signs like that for Chicago's VarietyStation.com. Thank you. And sorry, Roger,
Well, we
I had to
need
get
to
that
get
plug
one
in.
for the Roger the Wild Child show.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you know what? We gotta do that, Roger.
Hello.
Okay.
That's what Star needs behind.
Oh, that is not
We all
today.
need
I
one.
was going, look, there's my artwork. Yes.
All right, Jimmy Knight, Star, Deborah Driggs,
you.
Frankie.
Hi, everybody.
Wonderful night. Good night.
Thank you,
everybody.
Howard Bloom. I'm Roger the Wild Child. Have a great week. Happy Memorial Day, everyone.
Yes.
Bye.
Be safe.
Yes.
Roger the